podcast. Bounce is playful, unfussy conversations with SoCal arts and culture stars. I'm your host, Susan Petrella, a lifelong arts and culture patron / advocate, and the rockstar consultant who rockets your business to success. Each Wednesday, I'm hanging out with cool, clever, and creative individuals. Today's guest is Jane Bauman. Jane is an American painter, sculptor, and academic. Jane's the former chair of the Visual and Performing Arts Department, Coastline College. And I want to make this mention because last year she was honored to be included in the Saarbrücken Museum, Saarbrücken, Germany exhibit Illegal Art. Because in the 80s, Jane was out and about in the middle of the night doing street art. And what was I doing in the 80s? Getting an MBA. How boring. And what's really cool is the piece that was exhibited. What was the name of that?
It was a piece of street art that I had done on the side of a building, and someone had torn it down. And because collectors are going around New York ripping street art off, and about 15, 16 years ago, they felt guilty and they mailed it to my parents' house. You know, shockingly enough. It's like I get this call from my dad, honey, there's a really large package here.
But they bought the piece for their permanent collection.
Yeah, but the museum bought the piece for their permanent collection, which is wonderful.
Yes.
A good thing.
And even though she's an American painter, she's not here as a painter. Today, Jane's here as the curator of 515 Bendix's newest exhibit. Wow, say that 3 times, which she calls Broken Hallelujah. So she's here to tell you about Broken Hallelujah and just being a curator versus being an artist. I don't know, is that a difference?
What a difference. And it makes me appreciate David Michael Lee even more. You know, as someone who is both a working fine artist with an ongoing practice and, you know, he's the person responsible for this gallery. Yeah. And also, too, one of the things I want to say, it is so great to see so many people in here for this podcast show. Thank you guys for being here. You know, it really makes a difference. And it's really shifting gears from being, you know, an artist in my studio to being the person who is curating and putting together and organizing and hauling art around for this show. And I think it's kind of like, I feel the same way about curating a show maybe that I do about like eating in restaurants. If you ever eat in a restaurant, I think you should at some point in your life work in a restaurant. You know, it really shifts your perspective, you know, about things and makes you grateful in a way you probably couldn't be before. You know, but the whole idea of this exhibition came from a few months ago. I was listening to a lot of Leonard Cohen. And when I was younger, I was into new wave and punk rock music, and I thought Leonard Cohen was just some old creep, you know, who like wasn't with it and was doing like, you know, overly sentimental music. But, you know, we do grow up, and I've become to be a huge fan of Leonard Cohen, and one of my favorite songs is his Hallelujah song.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's just like it's so beautiful and so touching, and it's the idea that you don't have to be perfect. Joy doesn't have to be coming from a state of perfection. You know, that there is wisdom in imperfection, and that just the fact that you are still alive, that you wake up in the morning, you put one foot in front of another and you carry on. That spirit of carrying on. And I think there's nothing more important than having that spirit of carrying on right now with the condition that our country is in. And, you know, it's been kind of rough lately, I think, for a lot of people. And we are worried about funding for our educational institutions. We're worried about funding for arts. We see things being clawed back. And yet, I look around at our artistic community, I don't see people going, oh, to hell with it. I'm never doing art again. It all sucks. Life sucks. I'm going to jump off walk into the ocean, jump off a cliff. It's not worth, it's useless. It's futile. I don't see that attitude in my art friends and in the artistic community. I see like we are going to persevere, we are going to continue. And it's not about making, also too, I've seen a real shift from, it's not about making perfect corporate art, and not like the shift to make art, well, I know someone will buy this, it's such a handsome piece. I see there's a much more of a shift going towards self-expression. And another thing too that I like about this 515 Bendix gallery is that it's an artist collective. And I think
What does that mean?
It means it's a non-commercial gallery.
Okay.
They do not exist to sell art. They're a collective, and the artists that are in it like pitch in $100 a month so that we can pay the rent at the Bendix building. And so it's not about feeling pressure to make work that's marketable. And I make art that's marketable sometimes. Not everything I make is marketable, but I want to sell my art. I want to make money from my art. We all do. I don't know. But it's sort of like if that's your primary purpose, you can make a whole lot more money going into a different field. Try real estate. We all know that. We all know that. But I think artist collectives are going to become more and more important in the Southern California art scene. And I think it has to do with commercial galleries are, particularly at the mid-level, are becoming fewer. They can't pay their rent, it's
a lot of closings.
Yeah, a lot of closing.
And high profile.
Yeah.
High profile closings.
Yeah, there's even like high profile closings happening as the market's starting to crumble a little bit, which is not surprising considering everything that's going on. And so artists once again are taking things into their own hands and creating exhibition spaces that exist for, like this one really exists to show your work to other artists. It's about sharing your work with the community. And you never know what's going to happen from situations like that.
And that's very different than this previous where you were making work for the corporate world versus making it for other artists and getting their critique too.
Yep.
Is that important?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think getting feedback from your fellow artists is incredibly important. And I think that those are the situations that an artist can benefit the most, from the feedback and advice or scorn. It's like, oh, that looks like.
And it seems like you're freer too in this collective type of arrangement for what you might want to work, what you might want to do versus, what you might want to create. You're freer then too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a freedom in that. I think that's a really good thing right now in this time and space. And one of the things that the Bendix building, where this gallery is, it's in what they call the fashion district, which sounds, the fashion district, I don't know if you've been down to the fashion district in LA, but in the daytime, there's absolutely no parking there. Like,
oh yeah.
It's full of stalls and vendors and, it's
run around the block 10 times.
It's real working class.
Yeah.
It's real working class. A lot of taco trucks and that kind of thing. And it reminds me so much of my origins when I got out of graduate school. I moved to New York City. And I lived in the East Village and became a part of that whole East Village art scene, which was very similar to what I think artists need to be doing today about make your own scene. You know, we were renting really cheap storefronts in the Lower East Side and setting up these galleries with absolutely no experience, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And it turned into an extremely successful art movement. And a lot of us had come from the streets. We were doing street art as well as gallery, what I call gallery art. And a lot of us were using spray paint. We were using found materials. One of my favorite places to do my street art was the pavement, sidewalks and the pavement. And one of the reasons I picked that is it was available. it was available, and I had to compete with all these guys. And they did not like me out there doing that at all. And the fact that I was white made it even worse. You know, and so I found, you know, like, well, they don't want the pavement. You know, they don't want the sidewalk, so I'll take that. Windows and sidewalks, and that became...
Were you out racing the police?
It was mostly out racing other
Other street artists.
Yeah. I left that whole scene because it got too dangerous. You know, I got stuck up with knives and guns and stuff. I never got hurt, but I got threatened a lot. And you know, the bad thing, they like when you got like hit up by these hostiles, they would take your paint. You know, I lost a camera and all my paint and everything. It's like, whoa. You know.
So how does this all relate to Broken Hallelujah?
Well, this place the Bendix building and the scene around it reminds me of the East Village.
It's very gritty.
From my youth.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been doing in my art is I've been really like digesting and incorporating the art that I did in the 1980s into what I'm doing today. And so this curating this exhibition is kind of the culmination of this conversation I've been having with my older self in recent years. I started having this conversation with my younger self during COVID. You know, all those months isolated and, you know, really thinking about who I was, where I came from, and I started to really miss the 1980s in gritty New York City. You know, before Juliana cleaned up the place. You know, it was gritty, and this whole area around the Bendix and the whole like orientation to art that a lot of the artist spaces in the Bendix building have. You know, it's got this. I think there's some places in San Pedro that remind me of the Bendix atmosphere. You know, so there's like outcroppings of that type of sentiment, you know, going on today.
So what about the artists you chose for this exhibit?
I wanted to pick artists whose work isn't like each other. I wanted to have like a lot of variety here. And part of the reason I did that, and I've got all these sort of like theories and notions in my head. It's like artists do all this incredibly different kinds of work. And yet most artists, they get along really well. You don't see artists getting in like knockdown, drag out fights between, you know, maybe only in their minds between, you know, I'm a realist and you're an abstractionist. And I like one of the issues that I think we're going to be up against in our society is how do you bring together people who have such radically different ideas? We've become so like pluralized and balkanized, and how can we ever bring us together? So I wanted to bring together in this exhibition people that are extremely different. And see, it's just like a totally idealistic thing in my head. See, this incredibly different piece of art can be next to this art that has nothing to do with it, and they come from completely different places, yet they can coexist. And so that's like that's my artist idealism and the way that I think in my head. Well, if we can do it on the wall in a gallery, maybe we can do it out in our society, out in our culture. Nah. Oh, it's just hope. It's hope. Maybe.
Yes, we can.
And so that's, I wanted artists whose work was different from each other, and yet, like, there's certain formal elements that, like, I have a love of line, a love of line, and you're gonna see, like, in this exhibit, a lot of line.
I see one person that's very strong in the line.
Yes, there's several like strong line people here.
I have one of her works.
Yeah.
Well, and Katie too.
Yeah, and there are, like, how many people are in the show that are here today? Josh Friedman is in the
Josh
show
back there.
here.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand, Josh. Say hi to everybody.
I encourage him to have a podcast.
Yes. Ann Christensen is in the show.
Oh, hi,
Katie
Ann.
Stubblefield. David Michael Lee. Did I forget anybody who's in the list? Yeah. And, so,
And the broken part of Hallelujah.
well, in the song, Cohen sings about, like King David uttered a broken hallelujah, but it was a hallelujah. It was broken. He was like, she cut his hair, she tied him to the kitchen chair, he's been immobilized, and yet, he can still utter a hallelujah, the joy of being alive, and that gratitude, a deep gratitude for, I'm alive, and having that be enough. It's just sort of like, I think it's a sentiment that we can all real strongly identify with today. Yeah. So now I'm like I used to dislike Leonard Cohen. I was a horrible punk snob. Horrible. But now I love him.
It's a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Yeah.
So when does this exhibit open?
This
And
exhibit
she's inviting
opens.
you all.
Oh,
or
you're
us
all invited. September 20th from 7 to 9.
Okay.
And at the Bendix building on the 5th floor.
On the 5th floor, and that's like what's is it like 12th and what's it 12th and
It's on Maple.
and like 12th or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
It just it's a very interesting neighborhood. I think
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I think I had to drive around like 10 times or whatever.
Is that all?
And then I parked, and somebody was really glaring at me the whole time I was parked there. Like,
Well, there's all the vendors down there.
yeah, they wanted my space.
They wanted your space.
They wanted my
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
So,
But it's not dangerous.
no.
There's nothing dangerous. It's just, it's working class.
Everybody knows the history of Bendix, I hope, years ago. No? Oh my God, what was her name? She had an affair with William Bendix, and it was a
right.
big scandal,
Yeah.
remember?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
It was in the
That was
newspapers.
like the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know, his assistant or something like that or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was some big.
yeah, didn't they have to both
scandal.
resign or something like that? It was like, workplace, love affair, extramarital affair. Oh, wow. But that has nothing to do with
Yeah, nothing to do with
Jesus.
that. But Track 16 has moved into the Bendix building, and they had a major exhibition of Joseph Boy's work just about 6 weeks ago. And so the building's starting to get more commercial galleries in it.
But there still is artist studio space.
Oh, there's a ton of artist studio
yeah,
spaces
it's
there.
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice because, having been here for like 21 years now, you see old DTLA around Little Tokyo and stuff, and how,
Yeah.
it's just kind of become some commercial, gentrified.
Yep.
And like,
Yep.
you have to go kind of like farther and farther out, and then, you meet up with Boyle Heights, and there's a lot of angst about, that becoming gentrified and such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what spaces
lot.
are available? There needs to be more buildings like that.
They're due. That's bad English, sorry.
Yeah.
There does need to be that.
Yeah.
It does.
Well,
But the rent's cheap, relatively speaking, at the Bendix, and that's why artists and collectives are happening there. And, hopefully that will continue.
All right, everybody put that on your calendar. Burbank
Yeah.
Hallelujah, 1515 Bendix, September 20th,
Yeah.
7 to 9. Be there, be square.
Yep.
Thank you, Jane.
Oh,
for
thank
sharing,
you.
For sharing your story with us.
Thank
Really
you.
proud it's about. A special thank you to our generous sponsor, Coastline College, its Fine Arts Department Art Gallery, David Michael Lee, curator, director, professor. I changed those around. He's also our fabulous producer. Thank you, David.